Hello and welcome to my channel. So you might be wondering why I might look a little bit unkempt right now. Well, actually I just got home from grocery shopping and it was actually going to rain on my way home, and so I still have a little bit of rain on my glasses and my hair, and yeah, but I'm home now and I survived the rain. And yeah, I bought some vegetables, I bought water spinach, and I bought actual spinach. I just realized that I bought too much spinach today. So anyway, new realization. I was thinking for this video, since it's already like less than 1 week for 2020, for the year to end. It's only like 5 or 6 days left. I'm thinking about just making a video about the books that I DNF this year, because of all the books that I'm reading right now, I don't think that I will DNF them, because the books that I currently have right now seem kind of okay, and I've not gotten to the point where I would want to DNF any of those books. So I would say that my list of 2020 DNF is somewhat finalized by now, so I think it's a good time for me to proceed with this video of the books that I could not finish in 2020 for less than favorable reasons. And I'm gonna start with this one by Umberto Eco. This one is called Numero 0. This, I think, was the first book that I DNF'd. I just did not enjoy this. I had some expectation, because Umberto Eco seems like a famous author. He has written famous books, I guess, like The Name of the Rose. I think I should have started with that. In fact, I actually have that book, but then I decided to start with this one because I was reading something else at the time, and this one actually seemed shorter, and I was hoping for something that was a little bit more breezy and something that I can cruise with. But no, this book was boring. I'm not exactly sure what this book is about. There seems to be stuff related to conspiracy in Italy, and this hack writer who can't get a job, and he's working on this fake newspaper, something like that, and he needs to come up with a hot conspiracy to write in that newspaper. But the thing is, he kind of has to invent the stuff, the conspiracy, and he has a team with him, and I'm not sure how the story evolves, because I actually DNF'd this book early on, because I felt that this book went on a little bit too much on the details on how to write a convincing conspiracy-laden newspaper, and I was not interested in that. I was interested with the story, but then this book kind of turned into some sort of a lecture note, and it was a lecture note on something that I was not interested in, and so I stopped reading this book. I was really disappointed, and now I'm a little bit scared to read Eco's other books, because I actually have, I think, at least 2 of his other books, The Name of the Rose being one of them. But I guess I'm gonna read that one anyway, because I just found out that actually many people thought that this book was kind of crappy, but Rose seemed to be okay, so I'll read that one later. And I think the second book that I DNF, not sure if the order is correct, but this was earlier this year as well, and Enright's The Gathering. This book is a family fiction about this dark secret that happens to this one particular family, that was made known after this one of the brothers in that family dies. And the premise actually sounds really promising. I would be very, very attracted to that kind of premise, but the story, the protagonist, I thought was just so apathetic, and she's she does not seem interested in herself. I mean, that's kind of makes sense given the state of mind that she's in this book, but I think the narrator does not seem interested with the book in general also. I was really disappointed. I just felt like everything in this book was really boring, really flat, and at first I was interested with that dark secret, but then I was like, screw that, there's too much apathy going on in this one. And oh yeah, there seems to be a lot of obsession, I guess, preoccupation with sex in this book, and I'm not so keen on having so much sex, senseless sex reference. It's not even sex scenes, it was just like sex reference, especially, you know, sex references on sex of the more elderly family members. So yeah, I'm gonna pass on that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna read more of Enright's of the books, because this one won the Booker Prize, so I suppose that this book was good. But then a lot of other people say that some of her other books are good also. I might try them, but I'm not sure. I feel kind of demotivated right now. And then I also DNF this one by Chitra, Banerjee, Divakaruni. It's called The Mistress of Spices. And before this, I actually read, I think it was called Sister of My Heart. Now I liked that. It was okay, it was not mind-blowing, but it was fine. It was a good family fiction. This one attracted me particularly because it seemed to be promising a magical realism, or, you know, some fantastic element in it, some magic and stuff like that. And of course, I have to read stuff like that because those are my things. And yeah, and as far as that goes, it kind of delivers, I suppose. There are some magic things in here, magic things involving spices or, you know, whatever. So this story is about this woman named Tilo, and she has this ability to kind of command magic through spices. But the thing is, she can't really form earthly attachments with people. She can't form relationships. So she has to be like, you know, this loner, this person who does not go into relationship. She have to kind of be chased, I suppose. And then one day she falls in love with a guy, and I think it should be good. And I think that the character is quite immature, but I think that should have been something that was, filled with opportunity, because you can have like great development for that character. And I think that it is going towards that direction, I suppose, but I did not finish it because I just thought that the writing was just so... It's trying to be edgy. I would say that there's tons of run of sentences. I don't mind run of sentences, but the run of sentences here just felt kind of superficial, and I don't know, it just felt overall soulless to me, like a book that was supposed to be talking so much about passion and love. It's really just devoid of passion, and it's disappointing, you know. Moving on, I'm not sure if I'm doing this in order, so I'm just going to take any of the book on my stack that I could take right now. I DNF this book by Madeleine Thien. It's called Do Not Say We Have Nothing. I read another book by Thien earlier this year. It's called Certainty, and I liked that. This one is a little bit thicker, and it was shortlisted. Or was it longlisted? It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, so I suppose some people found it good, and indeed, I would say I can see why some people find it good. There is some good content, some some substance in this book. It's not horrible, but I felt that this book, it rubs me the wrong way. I don't really like things that seem to, whether it's done intentionally or not intentionally, that seems to romanticize different cultures. And I think that this book appears to have romanticized, perhaps accidentally, Chinese cultures or Eastern cultures by actually having kind of translated names for their characters. And I think that, that's probably a small issue. People wouldn't be affected by that, but it affected me so much. Like, why would you have that with, the characters, the Chinese characters who live in China? Why can't you just have their names written as, actual names? That would have been more authentic, and you don't have to translate their names, because no one, including Chinese themselves, even if they have names that translates into sparrow, when they call that person, they won't think of the image of sparrow in their head when they're calling that person, even when his name is translated into sparrow. But yeah, that person is called Sparrow in this book. So I'm not sure what's going on with that whole thing. But anyway, this book was actually about this family. It's kind of like a family saga. There are two storylines in this book. One takes place in sometime in mid-20th century China, and another one takes place in modern time in Canada. So the main character's father in the modern time Canada, he commits suicide, and he has some history back in China that involves his friends, his family back there, and there's something that happens over there that kind of I would say affects him like deeply. And so this book explores all that, and I think that's really interesting. But I don't know, just the way that particular aspect that I mentioned about this book, it was just not for me. I didn't feel comfortable reading this at all. Now, talking about books, that is related to China, I have another book that was written by a Chinese author, and this one is by Wei Hui. This one is called Shanghai Baby, and this book was originally written in Chinese. It was translated by Bruce Humes, who actually also translated The Last Quarter of the Moon by Zijian, which I read earlier this year, which was awesome. And I could certainly see some of the elements of his translation in this book. There seems to be like this calm and reposed and subdued language. When you're reading the translation, there's certainly those vibes appearing in that book, and in this book, and that book, of course. And I kind of like that. I appreciated that a bit. But this book, the content is just... It was supposed to be a saucy book, a controversial book. It was known for being banned in China because of its subject matter, and of course my interest was piqued. But something that I learned this year is that if an Asian book, regardless of which country it is, from an Asian country, if it was marketed as something that was controversial or banned, there is a chance that it will be kind of disappointing. Which, I can understand. I can understand why it was banned for its subject matter. It does seem kind of racy for the society from where this book was coming from. But I also kind of have read books about, sexual escapades and stuff like that. And the things that are in this book, they are just so tame. They are like really innocent, and if you strip that away, if you strip that raunchy, supposedly raunchy aspect of this book, there's nothing else in here. Like, it's supposed to be about this woman's trying to find out her identity. She's a young woman in Shanghai, and she's kind of trying to find out who she is as a person through all of this sex and relationships and doing drugs or whatever. But no, there wasn't much. She's in a relationship with some guy who is so pathetic, and she's also in a relationship with a married man, but that's it. Like, there's nothing else. I was so sad by that, and I just couldn't continue. I gave this book a few tries, but I just couldn't continue. It was so unbearable. Next was a book that I kind of DNF'd, and I felt sad that I DNF'd this book because it was actually a gift from my sister. And let me just say that if I were to see this book on the store, I would have bought it as well because I thought that it's interesting. So I do appreciate the fact that my sister got me this book, because I would have gotten this book myself also. But at the end, I just kind of have to DNF this book because I didn't enjoy it, for reasons. This one is by Menna van Praag. It's called The House at the End of Hope Street. So it's about this young lady who is kind of in a state of despair, and she reaches this particular house literally at the end of a street called Hope Street, and she has to stay there for a limited period of time, and during that time she has to kind of figure out a way to get back to her life, get out of the funk that she's in. And apparently, historically speaking, in this story, that house has also accommodated some of the great female names, like Virginia Woolf, I think, George Eliot. They have all stayed in this house because they were in this low state in their life, and then when they emerged from this house, they emerged victorious. Personally victorious, And I thought that was a very nice premise. It has some magic elements to it. It has that alternate universe element to it, which I thought was really interesting. However, I felt that the way the characters are being explored in this one, they seem to be explored in a very superficial way. We know that the main character is a smart woman, but the way that we know that she's a smart woman is because the narrator said that she's a smart woman. She has multiple degrees. She's doing university, stuff like that. But other than that, and she reads a lot. She quotes books a lot. And she knows the names of many authors. I mean, they are famous authors, so it wouldn't be strange if she knows them. But yeah, she knows them. But yeah, it's mostly tell and not showing, and it gets to a somewhat of a uncomfortable point that I just felt that it was just a little bit too blunt. And also, the character, back to her habit of quoting writers, female writers especially, the way that it is done, it is kind of very superficial. Like, there is not really tons of attempts to weave the quotes or why she quotes certain writers into the plot of the story. Instead, those writers are just being mentioned because, I suppose the story wants to demonstrate that this main character is a smart lady. And I think that was an opportunity missed into making this book a little bit more in-depth and more interesting. I have 3 books left. Next one is, I think, something that I read, Normal People by Zadie Rooney, because I heard a lot about this book, and so I just wanted to try it. And in fact, I paid a lot of money for this book. I paid like full price for it. I paid 50 ringgit for this book. So yeah, I was that interested. But this book was boring. I'm not sure what's going on after, even after reading like 40 pages of this book. It's about these two characters, a boy and a girl. They are applying for colleges. They're having sex. They talk to one another, and I'm not sure what this book is going. I'm not sure where this book is going. I'm not sure what the conflict is supposed to be. Maybe I have to read more into this book, but 40 pages and I was still not hooked. Why? I don't see any reason why I should just continue. So, very, very disappointing book. I wish I could get that 50 ringgit back. I do think this book is, it looks visually gorgeous, but no. Next is a book that I read as a buddy reading with two Bookstagrammers. One is Kristin from Needs My Books and Coffee, and Wiebke from Book Life of a Worldling, and they're both from Instagram. This one is White Teeth by Zadie Smith. When I started reading this book, I kind of enjoyed it, and there's definitely really obvious from the get-go. You can sense that the author is really intelligent, really smart, and you can sense that the intelligence in this book is just so sparkling. It's there, but I don't know. There is something about the way the narrator treats the character in this book. There are a few characters because this book involves two families in the UK. So there is a large cast of characters, but there is this tendency for the characters to go into caricature territory. And when it happens, the narrator kind of has the tendency to, treat these characters as caricatures and mocks them and really ridicules them. And I don't really like that. At first it's charming because, when the narrator says that these characters are so and so in a bad way, but in a funny sort of way also, you laugh. But then after a while, it just got a little bit tiresome. It got a little bit too much. You just want to see these characters, you want to connect with them, but then you kept being reminded that these characters are lacking in this way or that way. It's a little bit too much for me. So I stopped reading this book. And lastly, I also DNF a book that I set as a TBR for Victober. This one is by Charlotte Brontë. It's called The Professor. I chose this book also partly because it was a bit small, and I thought that maybe I could finish this book within 1 month, but as it turns out, I still couldn't finish this book after 2 months or so. and even after 2 months, I decided to just not continue with this book because it has this really perfect character. Now, I'm not sure what the trajectory of this, the character development will be like later in this book. Maybe there'll be some kind of subversion of that Mary Sue trope of the main character in this one, but I don't know. After so many pages, I kept seeing how good this character is, and it's just, I don't like reading about good characters because it makes me feel bad about myself. So I just stopped reading it. It just got really boring, and I hated myself even more. So yeah, bye-bye. I don't want to read this one. Hey, so I actually kind of forgot about one book that I dislike for fairly strong reasons, but I think I just forgot it while recording this video because I don't have the physical book with me. The physical book I've sent to Sean of Sean the Book Maniac because he was interested with the book. But yeah, this book was The Professor by Faisal Tehrani, and I think it's really interesting that I DNF two books of the same title this year. And this book was something that I was really interested in because it was my first time reading this author. My friend recommended me to read something by Faisal Tehrani, and so I was like, okay, let's try. This book was translated by Brigitte Bresson. It was originally written in Malay, and it is a gay novel of sorts, a queer novel about this main character who is a professor, and she is I would say a lesbian. I think I'm not sure if more of her relationship was going to be explored later in the story, because I DNF'd after 2 chapters. But yeah, she has female lovers, and we see a few of her relationship or sexual escapades early on in the story, which was okay. And I appreciate the fact that it's a gay novel with a Malaysian character set in Malaysia, and it certainly has that elements of violence towards gay people in Malaysian society. I was kind of intrigued by that, but the way that this book was written, it just felt so pedantic. Like, I felt like people who are familiar with the LGBT community, they are not the target audience for this book, because this book goes in like many paragraphs trying to explain the basic fact that gay people are just people, and it has tons of stuff on lecture notes, mostly lecture notes, because the main character is a professor, and or seminar notes, for example, because this professor also goes to seminars, talking about how certain places have violence towards gay people are a real thing. And it feels like this book is trying to educate people who are not familiar with the LGBT community about the existence of the LGBT community. But I feel like it is kind of rudimentary. It's like an intro course to gay people, and it's like, okay, it's fine, but I'm not interested in that. I think some of us have gone past that, and we don't need that kind of intro anymore. And I just DNF'd it, and it was on that first 2 chapters also that we didn't really see a lot of story. Instead, we see a lot of these introductions, but not much story. I would have rather the story being presented to us, and then readers can just kind of like make out that, yeah, gay people are people. So, So I guess that's it. Those are all the books that I did not finish this year. For, each of them has really unique reasons why I did not continue reading, but I find that I am also a little bit more confident in not finishing any book. I feel less guilty about not finishing them, because I realized that when I didn't finish any book, I was able to get that extra time, use the extra time to continue in a better book. So I guess that's a good thing. I'm not sure how it'll be like in 2021. I am actually very much excited to see what my DNF list will be like next year. So that's it for this ranty video, and I'll see you again in a different one. So until then, take care, thanks for watching, and bye bye. I'm gonna cook my spinach now, so I'll see you later.